What if I told you some of the most gripping thrill rides of the 1990s would never even reach a meeting room today? Not because they failed, but because they dared too much. These films trusted viewers to sit with discomfort, to think, and to feel uneasy without hand-holding. Halfway through this list, you'll notice something strange. It's not what these movies show, it's what they refuse to soften. Number 15, Sleeping with the Enemy, 1991. This film opens quietly. Too quietly. Everything looks calm. Too calm. And that's exactly why it worked. Sleeping with the Enemy tapped into a fear that feels almost invisible at first. The idea that danger can live behind perfect manners and spotless rooms. The story follows a woman who believes she has finally escaped a controlling marriage, only to realize that distance does not always mean freedom. There are no flashy tricks here. The tension builds through silence, routines, and small details that slowly start to feel wrong. What made this film bold for its time was how patiently it trusted the audience. It didn't rush. It didn't explain itself every 5 minutes. It let viewers notice patterns, habits, and emotional pressure without spelling everything out. Modern thrillers often feel the need to soften these moments or resolve them quickly. This one didn't. Studios today would likely demand changes. Less quiet, less waiting, more reassurance. But the discomfort was the point. That slow realization that safety can vanish without warning stayed with people long after the credits rolled. That kind of restraint is rare now, and that's exactly why this film still lingers. But number 14, Poison Ivy, 1992. Poison Ivy didn't ask for permission. It simply walked into the room and made everyone uncomfortable. On the surface, it looks like a simple story about a troubled outsider entering a wealthy household. But beneath that setup is a sharp, unsettling look at obsession, envy, and blurred boundaries. The film thrives on unease rather than shock. Conversations feel loaded. Glances linger too long. Every scene feels like something is slightly off. What makes this movie a product of its era is how unapologetic it is. It never pauses to explain its characters or justify their behavior. It assumes the viewer is smart enough to read between the lines. That confidence is rare now. Today, a script like this would face heavy rewrites. Motivations would be spelled out, edges would be smoothed, and the ambiguity that made the film memorable would be treated as a problem instead of a strength. Poison Ivy survives because it refuses to be comfortable. It lets tension sit in the room and trusts you to feel it. That quiet boldness is exactly why it would struggle to exist today. Number 13, Single White Female, 1992. This movie understood something modern thrillers often forget. Closeness can be terrifying. Single White Female takes a simple idea and slowly twists it. A shared apartment becomes a pressure cooker. Small changes feel harmless at first, then unsettling, then impossible to ignore. The film never rushes the transformation. It lets discomfort grow naturally, scene by scene. What made it hit so hard in the 90s was how grounded it felt. No grand schemes, no dramatic speeches. And just ordinary life slowly sliding into something darker. That realism made it stick. Today, stories like this are often exaggerated or stylized to soften their impact. But this film worked because it felt close to home. Too close. The fear didn't come from surprises. It came from familiarity. And that's harder to sell now when audiences are trained to expect constant escalation. Single White Female trusted stillness. It trusted silence. And it trusted the viewer. That's a risky combination in the modern system. Number 12, Fear, 1996. Fear starts like a typical young romance story. That's the trick. The film slowly reveals how charm can shift into control and how attention can turn into pressure without warning. What made it stand out was how directly it spoke to young viewers without talking down to them. It didn't frame its story as a lesson. It showed the progression and let the audience connect the dots. Studios today often insist on clear signals and constant reminders. Fear didn't. It trusted subtle changes in tone and behavior to do the work. That choice made it unsettling in a way that still holds up. The movie also refused to soften its message. It showed how quickly trust can turn into something frightening without turning the story into fantasy. That realism would likely make modern executives nervous. Fear wasn't flashy. It was direct, And that honesty is exactly why it wouldn't survive today's safety-first development process. Number 11. Bad Influence, 1990. Bad Influence is built around temptation without clear consequences, and that is exactly why it feels unsettling. The story follows an ordinary man who drifts into the orbit of someone who thrives on manipulation and disorder. There is no dramatic transformation at first, no obvious warning signs. Instead, influence seeps in quietly through confidence, pressure, and suggestion. The danger is not loud, it is casual, and that makes it harder to see coming. What sets this film apart is its refusal to offer comfort. There is no clear hero to root for, no guiding voice explaining what is right or wrong. The characters make choices that feel believable, even when those choices lead them somewhere dark. That realism is what gives the film its edge. This movie comes from a time when thrillers trusted ambiguity. It allowed behavior to speak for itself. Consequences unfold slowly, without neat resolution or moral balance. Modern thrillers often rush to explain motives or smooth out endings. Bad Influence does neither. It leaves tension unresolved and questions unanswered. That kind of confidence would struggle today. Audiences are often promised clarity. This film offered uncertainty instead. And sometimes, uncertainty is far more disturbing. Number 10. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, 1992. This film turned everyday trust into a ticking clock. At its core, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is about how easily good intentions can be exploited. A family welcomes help into their home, believing they are doing the right thing. What follows is not chaos right away, but something far more unsettling. Patience, small choices, quiet influence, the kind of tension that grows slowly, almost politely. What made this movie a hit in the 90s was its nerve. It took familiar spaces and made them feel unsafe without exaggeration. Kitchens, bedrooms, backyards. Places that should feel secure suddenly feel exposed. The danger never announces itself. It blends in. Today, this story would likely be softened. Characters would be more obviously suspicious. Warning signs would be louder. But the power of this film came from how long it waited before revealing its true shape. It trusted viewers to feel the shift, to notice when kindness stopped feeling kind. That level of restraint is rare now, when thrillers often rush toward spectacle. This film didn't rush. It let fear take root slowly. And that patience is exactly why it still unsettles. But number 9. Kiss the Girls, 1997. There was a time when thrillers believed thinking was just as exciting as action. Kiss the Girls belongs to that moment. The film focuses on investigation, observation, and psychology rather than non-stop motion. It moves deliberately, following patterns, clues, and human behavior. Viewers are invited to pay attention instead of being rushed forward. What made it stand out was its seriousness. The story treats its subject with weight, not spectacle. It doesn't glamorize danger. It studies it. That approach feels almost old-fashioned now. Modern thrillers often rely on speed and noise. This one relied on focus, on conversations, on small details that slowly form a larger picture. That kind of pacing would be considered risky today. The film trusted audiences to stay engaged without constant stimulation, and audiences did. It worked because it respected attention spans rather than fearing them. That respect is rare now, which makes this film feel like a time capsule from a braver era. Number 8. The Guardian, 1990. This movie is proof that studios once took very strange chances. The Guardian feels like a story that wandered out of a nightmare and onto a studio soundstage. It takes a familiar setup and twists it into something unsettling and unpredictable. The tone is serious. There's no wink, no safety net. It commits fully to its unsettling ideas. What makes it fascinating is not just the story, but how it was made. A respected director was given freedom to explore something deeply uncomfortable. Today, that freedom would be rare. In scripts like this would be rewritten until the edges disappeared. The Guardian didn't smooth anything out. It leaned into unease and let scenes linger longer than expected. That willingness to unsettle made it memorable, even when audiences weren't sure how to react. Modern studios prefer clear lanes. This film wandered off-road, and that kind of wandering is almost impossible now. Number 7. Consenting Adults, 1992. This is a thriller built on one terrifying idea. trust can be weaponized. Consenting Adults takes place in quiet neighborhoods where everyone smiles and waves. That's what makes it effective. The story slowly reveals how manipulation can hide behind charm and politeness. Nothing feels extreme at first. That's the trap. The film doesn't rush to reassure the viewer. It lets discomfort sit. And it lets situations spiral without easy explanations. That confidence made audiences uneasy in the best way. Today, this story would likely be rewritten to feel safer. Motivations would be clearer. Outcomes would be cleaner. But the original film refused to tidy things up. It showed how quickly normal life can tilt when someone decides to take advantage of trust. That kind of moral gray area is harder to sell now, but it's exactly why this film still stands out. Number 6. California, 1993. California traps you inside a moving box with danger and never lets you settle. The entire film is built on closeness. Long drives that stretch on forever. Tight spaces where conversations linger just a little too long. Nothing explodes right away. Instead, tension builds through silence and uneasy behavior. The fear comes from being stuck, from realizing too late that you are sharing space with someone unpredictable and there is nowhere to step away. What made this film bold was its refusal to offer comfort. There is no safety switch, no sudden rescue that restores order. The story moves forward with a growing sense that one bad decision has already changed everything. That slow realization is what makes the experience so heavy. Modern thrillers often depend on speed and constant motion. California chose the opposite. It relied on atmosphere, on watching behavior shift inch by inch, on letting silence do the work. That approach demands patience from both the filmmaker and the viewer, and patience is something modern systems rarely reward. This film asked audiences to sit with discomfort and stay there, and that quiet challenge is exactly why it would not be made the same way today. Number 5. Dark Blood, shot in 1993. This film feels like a ghost you weren't meant to see. Dark Blood was filmed in the early 1990s, but remained unseen for years, frozen in time. The story centers on a man living alone in the desert, convinced the world is nearing its end. When a stranded couple crosses his path, isolation turns into tension and belief turns into control. What makes this film impossible today is not just its subject, but its tone. It is quiet, uneasy, patient to the point of discomfort. There are no clear answers, no reassuring guideposts. You are left alone with the characters and their choices. Modern studios would struggle with this kind of story. It refuses clarity. It resists comfort. It doesn't explain itself. Instead, it lingers in silence and atmosphere. Watching it now feels like opening a time capsule from an era when films were allowed to feel incomplete and unsettling. That openness is rare today. Dark Blood doesn't entertain in the usual way. It unsettles, and sometimes that's far more powerful. Number 4. The Devil's Advocate, 1997. This movie should not exist, and yet it does. A major studio greenlit a long, serious thriller about ambition, temptation, and moral decay, and trusted audiences to follow it all the way through. No shortcuts, no simplification, just commitment. The Devil's Advocate takes its time. It lets conversations stretch. It allows ideas to breathe. It never rushes to reassure the viewer. That confidence feels almost shocking now. Today, this story would likely be trimmed, softened, or reworked into something safer. The original film trusted viewers to think, to listen, and to sit with uncomfortable questions. It didn't rely on speed. It relied on presence, on atmosphere, on performance. That kind of trust between studio and audience feels almost extinct now, which is exactly why this film stands as a monument to a different era of filmmaking. Number 3. Fear, 1996. This film didn't just show how attraction can turn dark, it showed how quietly it happens. Fear builds tension through everyday moments, conversations, smiles, small changes in behavior that don't feel alarming until it's too late. The story doesn't shout, it whispers. What made it hit so hard was its honesty. It trusted viewers to recognize warning signs without being told what to think. That trust is rare now. Modern thrillers often spell everything out. Fear refused. It let the audience connect the dots on their own. That subtlety made it powerful and unsettling. Studios today would likely demand clearer signals and faster turns. But this film's strength came from patience, from letting discomfort grow naturally. Fear didn't chase attention. It earned it. Number 2. Single White Female. 1992. Single White Female understood something many thrillers miss. Closeness can be more frightening than distance. The film begins in an ordinary shared apartment, a space meant to feel practical and familiar. Nothing feels wrong at first. That is the trick. The tension doesn't arrive through loud moments or sudden turns. It builds quietly through routine, small habits, subtle imitation, a sense that personal space is slowly shrinking. What makes the story effective is its patience. The film never rushes to explain itself. It trusts the audience to notice the shift as it happens. A look held a second too long. A choice that feels slightly off. Each scene adds pressure without calling attention to itself. Modern thrillers often exaggerate this kind of story. They highlight the danger early or soften the discomfort. This film did neither. It stayed grounded, which made everything feel real. Too real. By the time the tension fully surfaces, it feels unavoidable. Identity and trust unravel not through chaos, but through familiarity. The film offers no easy answers. And that refusal to comfort the viewer is exactly why it still lingers, and why it would struggle to be made the same way today. Number 1. Cape Fear. 1991. Cape Fear is the film that defines this entire list because it never asks for permission. From its opening moments, the movie feels relentless. It refuses to blink. The story takes fear, guilt, and obsession and pushes them closer and closer, removing any sense of safety along the way. There is no comfortable distance between the viewer and the tension, no pause where things feel under control. Every scene tightens the grip a little more. What truly makes this film impossible today is its nerve. It trusted the audience completely. It didn't soften its ideas or guide viewers toward easy conclusions. Instead, it leaned fully into discomfort and allowed the unease to sit where it belonged. Modern studios would almost certainly hesitate. The story would be called too intense, too risky, too demanding. There would be pressure to pull back, explain more, or offer relief. But that trust is exactly why the film worked. It assumed viewers could handle complexity, that they could think, feel uneasy, and stay engaged without being protected from the experience. That assumption feels rare now, and that is why Cape Fear still stands at the top. So here's the real question. Did these thrillers disappear because times changed, or because risk did? The 1990s trusted audiences to think, feel uneasy, and stay with difficult stories. If you miss that kind of filmmaking, let me know in the comments. Share this with someone who still loves bold cinema, and ask yourself this: which kind of thrill do you want back?